a talk on technology and CX, designing your CX strategy with analytics. For this talk, we would love to welcome the Director Customer Experience from Google, who is an experienced global leader with a demonstrated history of working in the e-commerce and finance space. A strong professional skilled in business planning, management strategy, project planning and business process, and we already had a small glimpse of her some 20 or so minutes ago. Once again, with great joy, welcoming on stage, Miss Chanchal Bansal, please.
Thank you so much. Can you guys hear me all right? So Rahul gave us a sneak peek into future, and it was very, very energizing to see what future has in hold for us. I think it's a very tough act to follow after Nitin, Anmol, Rahul, and say something very unique about customer experience. So I'll still try my best. And a lot of thanks to the organizers for picking up a topic. But hopefully this should get factored into boardrooms and decision making as much as we are talking about it here. I'm so sorry. There seems to be some problem with my slides. Just give me, okay, maybe I will just use what I have. Looks like my slides got updated and they got picked up before they got updated, so I'm a very last minute worker, as you can see, but we live with what I have. Unless if we do something in the background and get the details sort of set, and we'll still talk about it. So I'm going to start talking about the Google experience in this customer journey. And it's very interesting. Google is a place where we are a very product-centric company. Like we are product first, we try to make the best product. So if we get AI as a tool, guess where will be the first set of people? Where will be the first application of AI? Our first application of AI has always been making our products smarter. The whole idea was to, if you think there is a scenario, the first customer experience, the first set of people who will actually be responsible for fixing that will actually be product. And that's how we are. We have been when we are, and we're very proud of it. That's how we want it to be. What the customer experience journey for Google has been is very interesting. Think about an organization which are about 10,000 people working in customer experience. These are all frontline customer-facing people who are actually supporting multiple products across cloud, the Maps, the photos, the Gmail. Think about advertising products that we have, Google Ads, the 360. It's like maybe a 50+ product portfolio and different agents sitting behind each of the products. And like most of the companies, we've been very historically, like roll back 3 to 5 years, we've been very, very product focused. So what we do is, you are a large corporate customer, you have a problem with display and video, we have this display and video support team. You have a problem on search, here is our search support team. And we have never been talking to each other, that's our history. Like most of what you heard Anmol talk about, we've been very transactional. So for me, to say whether a customer experience is successful or not, it's only about saying, what is the transactional CSAT? Is the customer happy with that particular transaction? And that's about it. Right? Very interestingly, until last 3 years, a lot of what we showed as success was improvement in efficiency. Our customer satisfactions are very high at the transaction. Again, right? So that's what they don't want to do. In fact, there's another study which says that what customers are looking for is fast service. Anything that slows them down is actually discounted as a customer experience. So everyone is looking for very quick turnaround, very fast service, and which is why you see how we are pivoting. What we are pivoting now to is like customer user journey. What we're pivoting now to is, can I actually eliminate the ticket itself? And that for Google is actually how they think about it even otherwise, because their first approach is to go back to the product and fix it. But obviously that doesn't happen all the time. So then, can you analyze all the tickets and say which are the tickets which should have never come? And what do I do either in product or in my workflow to go back and fix it? And then, increasingly the conversation is more moving from looking at just transactional CSAT and being happy about it to say what is the relational sort of satisfaction. Anmol touched upon a lot of like metrics that are evolving, and I think it's a very, very complicated sort of space to say what the right metrics should be. But I think what are the insights which actually relieve customer pain points, and how many of them can we implement more easily? So that's the evolution. Do we have the? Is this the 15-minute bell? No. So apologies for this. Yeah. So that and I think the most interesting part of the Google journey was how do you take a 10,000 people org and make the frontline think differently, behave differently, put so much data together in a manner that it talks to each other. I'll share an anecdote. The change management was very hard. And one of the most interesting analogies I remember from the change management was we made each person like go through almost a role play where say think of yourself as a customer in a hotel. You're going to a reservation desk, you're going to a check-in desk, you're going to a concierge, and you're going to a travel desk probably when you're checking out. And each of these teams is doing their best to make sure you're happy as a customer, but if they don't talk to each other, right, and if there is no sort of translation of information or data between them, then the customer experience is still bad. So the hardest part for us is making sure we are taking these 10,000 people along with us in the journey and sort of making them understand the use case and see what do they really need to do. You will see why I wanted my new slides. So what I'll do is I'll pick 3 examples of how data analytics is impacting the customer experience space. And I've tried to make it very simple and very relatable. The first illustration is a retail bank. All of us have bank accounts. This was a bank where they had figured out that one of their problem areas is like the checkbooks didn't come on time or took a very long time to come. And I don't know how many of you have done business process reengineering, but typically in the past when we would do a business process reengineering case, our approach would be very simple. Is the courier the wrong courier because you're trying to pay less, and is it taking time to deliver? Are you personalizing the checkbooks and do you want to give that option to say, please don't personalize, I want it fast? Or are there any like approval processes? Like that's how typically you would approach this problem in a BPR kind of an approach. Interestingly, what this bank did is it actually analyzed data from various systems. It got the data from transaction, from CRM, many other systems. And what it figured out that it could actually preempt when the customer will want a checkbook, right? And that's where they delivered like unlocked value from predictive analytics. So, that's what made them realize, and think about it, a checkbook is such a small sliver of your banking experience. And you can do so much, like they reduced the costs of like this whole checkbook process by 30%, their customer satisfaction on this went up by 30%. So think about it, it's just a very small sliver of a customer experience, but if you apply it to like many different banking experiences, what could the impact be? So if there's one thing I want you to take away from this story, what you should use or what we should all be trying to use data analytics for is to get closer to your customers before they realize, can we as businesses realize, what they need and preempt their requirement. My second case study is an airline. So this was an airline which was, when it rains it pours, they say. So it had like many problems happening all of a sudden. It had lost its like parking slots, landing slots, and it had an underperforming and aging fleet. And all of you remember COVID, everything was screwed up. The industry did not have money to sort of invest. Now, what was the result? The result was delays and cancellations. And delays and cancellations for an airline industry is very, very, like it's suicidal. This was leading to like completely poor customer experience, and all the loyal customers were actually shifting away to competition. So what did these guys do? Ideally, they should fix the first two, which are the drivers of the problem, and not like, that's table stakes. However, those were long lead time items. They couldn't do it right away, right? They knew they have to do it. There's a different team which will work on it, and they'll figure it out. But it was not something that they could do right away. So what they did was they put a team together. I think it was a 15, 16 member team. Bulk of it was data scientists. There were customer experience people, and there were external consultants who were involved. They put together like some 1,500 variables from different like IT systems, which had like financials, operations, CRM data, loyalty program, everything. And they built a machine learning system to predict satisfaction and revenue for 100 million customers. What did they use it for? They put their arms around the customers where higher revenue loss was at risk. They communicated with them better. They offered them better compensation. They had like they built a very strong relationship with them so that they're able to buy these 2 or 3 months and not lose these customers, for good. So, that's the power of analytics. And some of this is very easy to say, but very hard to do because, you heard Nitin and Anmol talk about how putting and pulling data in all these scenarios is very difficult. So that was the, now in this case, the airline was pushed to the wall, right? They couldn't obsess about competition. They had a problem to solve. They had customers to retain. So they were like in a mess, really. And that's why they focused on which are the customers I want to retain. But there is a learning here. Most of the time, we obsess more about competition in our boardrooms than we actually worry about our customer. And that's the pivot that we need to change. If you're obsessed about the customer and you're using the data to solve for the customer, you will actually win many battles, even the potentially unwinnable ones. I don't know how many of you are familiar with health services payer industry, but it's a very operations heavy industry for anyone who knows. So these are the people who sit between the hospitals and let's say the insurers and make sure the, all the financial transactions related to healthcare are kind of getting processed. So that's my third sort of example of how data analytics has been used. So this is a company which is probably like some of you in the room which is saying, okay, I know data analytics is very cool, but what can I do with it, right? And sometimes that is a good starting point. Like it's an emerging field. What can I learn about my customers and what can I do differently? So that was their premise. What they did is they created, I think Rahul spoke about customer journey lakes. They created customer journey lakes from 4 billion records of their customer data that they had across 9 very disparate systems. And they did something very smart. Their starting point was to say, let me figure out where all am I having challenges with my customers. Either, I'll give you 3 sort of examples. Either that they were from a channel switching to another channel, they were completely leaving the payer and sort of going somewhere, so you lost a customer after a few interactions. Or, you were just like having operational breakpoints, like somebody's talking to let's say somebody on a call center and says, I want to talk to your manager, right? Like they picked up like those dissat points at 3 different levels, and then they said, what does the data tell me? And they got very, very interesting insights out of that data, which they use, and these insights are at multiple levels. I'll just probably, I think there is a time check, so I'll probably pick the top 2 and talk to you about it. For example, there are call center agents who are responding to queries. Now, if you use this data smartly, you can figure out which are the call center agents, like by the change in tone of their voice or by the breakpoint occurring, you can figure out which are the more difficult customers and which are the good agents. What you can do with that information is when you predict it's a difficult customer, you map it to a good agent. The other thing that you can do with this data is make sure who are not so good agents actually get trained on very, very specific points where they actually need training, and you don't need to undergo like those massive programs where you're training everybody on everything because you don't know what is the problem area. So that is like, for example, one example of the insight that they came up with, and there were many others like this. And the most interesting impact of this was they were able to, some of us struggle with digital adoption, right? Some of us struggle with self-service adoption in our businesses because that can impact our customer experience and costs both in like positive ways. What they were able to do with this insight is to understand and improve their digital service so much that they naturally got a lot of traffic, going on to digital services. So, I mean, I was in levers, and one of the things that we do in levers also is to go do customer service, and not only sales and marketing, but IT, HR, legal, like everybody goes out into the market. And some of the best learnings come from your irritated or irate customers. And that's a learning that I want you to remember, even when you use data analytics. Like, use data analytics and point it to where you think the breakpoints are, and you will probably get like better insights. I just had like, you know, all of us are trying to share learnings here so that, you know, we get better as a community. I'll just share learnings in two broad categories. What is our approach to data? Most often than not, all the data protection or regulation, you know, we do it kicking and moaning. Like, you know, we don't really like it, but we have to adopt to regulation. That can be turned on its head into competitive advantage if done well. You can actually, because you follow the regulatory guidelines, you are respecting privacy, you can make that a source of competitive advantage if you can tell your story powerfully. I remember Rahul's slide where he says there's too much data but no insight, right? So similarly, data everywhere but not a drop to act. Data is only as good as the questions you ask it. You know, and somebody who's a mentor to me actually says, data is a very willing prisoner. If you torture it enough, it will tell you whatever confession you want it to make. So be very careful of what you do with data. You should have very good questions, you should have very strong hypothesis, and only then will data analytics work for you. So that's my second learning. And I think I'm a big believer in equity and inclusion. So, you know, as more AI takes over, as everything becomes a black box, right, it's very important to protect your organization and your customer from biases. Things like race, religion, etc. can actually get into your algorithms and make you make decisions which are not what you would have made knowingly. So that's the one thing that I want you to be super careful of as you play in this field and get more futuristic. A lot has been discussed about approach to organization, so I'll pass. I think you know, Nitin and Anmol did like a very good job of covering it, so I'll give it a pass because I'm at time. But thank you so much. This is all I had for you guys today.